Warning: the following video contains explicit language, which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Oh, hey everybody, Jeff. I've been taking guitar classes and learning a few songs, at least parts of them anyway, just to learn the chords. And well, that's been something I've been doing here since winter started. You know, they have this program for veterans to learn how to play the guitar, and I said, you know what, I think I'll do that in the winter because there's not much to do in the wintertime. So I figured, well, I'll take it. It's 10 weeks, and at the end they kind of test you to what you've learned, and then if you pass, then you get a free guitar. And it's like, okay, I'll do it, you know. So just using my guitar there to practice a little bit. There's 3 songs so far that I have to learn. It doesn't go into the part of reading music, okay, which is unfortunate because I want to be able to learn how to read the music as well as play it. But I guess for right now, it's good to just understand the sounds of the chords and understand the instrument itself. And so it's pretty good. I mean, the guy is a veteran who's teaching me, and he brings his little dog to the classes, and the dog is always trying to bite me all the time because he sits on the table in front of me while I'm playing, and he's looking at me like, you son of a bitch, if you make one false move, I'm gonna tear your ass off. And he's like, the look he gives me, and you can see he's at the verge of growling. He's just a little thing. You know, it's some little dogs that are always got vicious tempers. You know, I don't know. I can't understand why that is. I mean, I grew up with a little poodle chihuahua mix, and that sucker was always trying to bite me while I was sleeping at night. He'd get on the bed and sleep by my feet, and then at night he'd be biting my feet because I would be rolling and moving like this, and he didn't like that because he got himself nice and comfortable at the foot of the bed. And the minute I start to move, he's like, ah, you know. So yeah, he was like that, and so yeah, I don't know. It's just funny, but I think that's why I kind of chose a cat for a pet, because they're a little more even-tempered. You know, they're not the kind of cat that would you know, not just attack you all the fucking time unless there's something wrong with the cat. You know, but I never had one that was that violent. But you know, big dogs are usually nicer. I mean, I've seen a lot of big dogs, and you know, they usually are more friendly for some reason. They don't, you know, they don't just growl at every moving little thing that's out there, you know. You know, so that's nice. I mean, there's a friend who has a pit bull, female, all white, and nicest dog I ever met. I mean, they'll sit there and I'll pet him and everything, and he's like, you know, and he's like, really friendly. And you know, I know people say pit bulls can be ugly, but you know, this one wasn't. I mean, so it was really nice. A really nice dog. Okay, so Kristi Noem is out. To no big surprise to anybody, I think. I think everybody in the fucking political world knew this was coming, okay? And I'll tell you why why it was going to happen. A, they were making her out, her and Pam Bondi, okay? It was a toss-up between which one of those two was going to get ousted first. But there's been a lot of anger being created against Bondi and Kristi Noem, okay? And I think that this is throwing us a bone. This is a way of Trump trying to give the people something of what they want, and maybe they'll quiet down, okay? Maybe they'll quiet down about the Epstein files. So let's throw them a bone, okay? And like I said before, everybody that works with Trump is a sacrificial lamb, okay? They can all be thrown under the bus at a moment's notice, but I think, everybody saw the handwriting on the wall that one of these two women were going to get ousted, okay? Because a lot of hatred was being built up on that. And this Epstein shit has really got Trump, in a corner here where he's desperate enough to start firing people that he hired, okay? But I don't think it's going to work because people know why this has happened. I think most people understand what he's done here. Okay, and I'm glad that people have caught on to it. This is just throwing us a bone. Kristi Noem was really an idiot. We all knew she was. We all knew that Trump was going to throw her under the bus at some point. Okay, and the momentum of hatred against her was just building the last month and a half or so. And it wasn't looking good for her. And so I was like, okay, any day I'm going to wake up and there's going to be a report. She's gone. And so she's gone. So let me read this thing here, okay? This little piece here. It says, Trump yesterday fired Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, marking the first cabinet secretary to depart during his second term. He nominated Senator Markwayne Mullin, Republican from Oklahoma, to replace her. The decision followed a congressional hearing in which senators from both parties urged Noem to resign. And then there's a little link to an excerpt of that. Lawmakers criticized her leadership during the Minneapolis immigration crackdown, her delay in distributing disaster funds, and her management of federal funds, including the allocation of roughly $220 million to an advertising campaign. You want to talk about frivolous, corrupt spending? Trump's got people out all over the goddamn country looking, to audit everybody, but right here in his own administration, he's got bullshit going on. Okay, Trump said Noem will shift to a newly created role, special envoy for the Shield of the Americas. What the fuck is that? It sounds like a comic book thing, like, oh, the Justice League of America, what the fuck? Okay, focused on Western Hemisphere security. That is so fucking vague, I don't know what the hell that is, okay? Under federal vacancy rules, Mullin can serve as acting DHS secretary while his nomination is pending in the Senate, which remains deadlocked over DHS funding, pushing the department shutdown into a fourth week. If confirmed, Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt, S-T-I-T-T, Republican, would appoint an interim replacement for Mullin's Senate seat until a special election is held. Okay. So, yeah, that's basically the details around what's going on here with that Kristi Noem shit, okay? And like I said, it's no surprise to anybody that's been following politics since Trump got back into office. Anybody knew that got their finger to the wind knew where this was blowing. Yeah, it's not sad to see her gone, but I don't think Trump is... It doesn't sound like he's really going to kick her out, completely. He's keeping her around for her superhero fucking thing, whatever the hell it is. Maybe she's going to have a costume made to look like Wonder Woman or something. Because she loves to dress the part for all these different things. But I can't imagine Trump would pick anybody that was of any caliber to replace her with. So we'll still be having problems with anyone who's taken over her job in the days to come. I can tell you that right now. No matter what's going on with the Senate and whatever, like I said, I can't none of us can trust Trump to pick realistic and qualified people to do the jobs he's putting them in. And that's unfortunate because, you know, we got lives on the line here, and it's not showing that that these people are able to do anything here besides just bulldozing through life, you know. Okay, we had sort of a primary happen in Texas here, and there's been some indication of voter suppression that went on there. And I'll read this here. It says, the much anticipated Texas primaries took place, sort of. Voter suppression was seen in two major counties, Dallas and Williamson. These two counties are where the two major Democrats, Jasmine Crockett and James Tallarico, are from. They ran in the Democratic primary against each other. The Republican primary featured corrupt Attorney General Ken Paxton running against incumbent Senator John Cornyn. Texas voting rules were changed at the last minute. The local Republican parties eliminated the use of county-wide voting centers, which during past elections allowed voters to vote at any site in their county. Instead, voters were directed to vote only at their assigned precinct polling location, which many people were not aware of or prepared for. This unexpected rule change created mass chaos and confusion. Thousands of voters showed up at the wrong locations, and many were turned away or had to be redirected midday. The rule change, legal under Texas law, also overwhelmed election assistance hotlines and crashed county election sites as voters tried to find their correct locations. Democrat candidates Jasmine Crockett and James Tallarico asked the court for an extension of voting hours, saying the precinct voting switch caused chaos and disenfranchised voters. The court agreed and granted a 2-hour voting extension in both counties. Late Tuesday, at the request of Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton's office, while he was himself on the ballot as a Senate candidate, the all-Republican Texas Supreme Court swooped in to shut down extended voting hours, ordering the ballots cast after the original 7 p.m. Deadline be segregated and potentially excluded, leaving thousands of voters in limbo. The court ruled that extended hours weren't properly noticed to the state AG's office, and ballots cast by people not in line by 7 p.m. should be separated and held pending later legal review. Election officials did issue provisional ballots to voters who arrived after 7 p.m. under the extended hours order, and those ballots have been preserved, but they're in a special quote-unquote segregated category. Whether those ballots will ever be counted is uncertain and likely to be decided by ongoing litigation. So, you know, you see, Republicans, they're not going to be honest. If we have midterms, okay, if Trump doesn't try to stop that, you can expect across the board all kinds of shenanigans like that from these red states and red counties. Okay, they're going to fucking tamper with I mean, this is the only way they can win, people. The hatred against the Republican Party and Trump and MAGA and all that stuff is at a fucking the highest it's ever been in this country. And they know this. They're not stupid. They're not blind. Okay? So what's the first thing they're going to do to try to hang on to power? Cheat. That's what they do. That's what they're known for. They've always been, you know, the minority thought in this country, and as a result, they've had to play some hard, dirty ball to stay relevant in our government. But make no mistake about it, these people are not going to allow, you know, anybody to try to make it fair. Okay? Having it unfair is what benefits Republicans, because that's the only way they can win. Their ideas suck. Their policies suck. The way they handle, you know, affairs, you know, and government and stuff sucks. Okay? They act like children that's got a new toy, and they try to use it all the time to protect themselves and to promote their party and to better their standing in government. That's all they do with it. I mean, so that means they're corrupt. to the core. I mean, I know a lot of people say, "Oh, both parties are corrupt." Well, maybe, but the Republicans are very, very noticeably corrupt. Okay, they don't even try to hide it. Okay, and for some reason, because they don't hide it, they get away with it. But when somebody else tries to hide corruption, they always get caught and they get fucking thrown in the slammer or whatever. Okay, so why is it that Republicans are given so much fucking leeway to be corrupt, and they allow it to go on? And it's like they said, will those ballots ever be counted? Probably not. They should be, but they won't be. They put them, we're going to preserve them for when? 20, 30 years down the road, you'll finally look at the ballot and say, oh, you know what? Back in 2026, this guy should have won and not this guy. Okay, then it won't fucking matter then. Then it won't fucking matter. But it'll only prove a point that I'm just making now. And that's, they're gonna cheat to try to hang on to what power they can. Because they know, the cloud of doom is hanging over that party's head. And they know if there's midterms this year, they're going to lose, and lose big across the fucking board. Okay? They're going to lose big. And, it's crunch time for these idiots. It really is. And it's going to bring the worst out of the Republican Party. And that right there ought to be signs enough that they don't deserve to have any fucking seat of authority in this country, period. Because they are that corrupt. I mean, would you want someone who's okay? Let's just drop this down here to a local level. Would you allow a police officer to go around and just do illegal things all the fucking time and keep excusing it and saying, "Oh, these"? Would you allow that if you knew there was a corrupt cop out there who was going around not following his own fucking rules, okay, kicking in fucking doors, shooting people at random? Okay, would you let that go on, or would you try and say, this has got to stop? Okay, now I realize we're talking election. I'm comparing, a cop to an election, but the bottom line is the same. We got to hold people accountable. Okay, when somebody's not playing in the game by the rules, they can't be allowed to play anymore. Okay, and Republicans have been caught so many fucking times in decades, tampering with elections, tampering with money, tampering with I mean, Jesus, it goes on. I remember the 2000 election. What a fucking debacle that was. Okay, even to this day, it's still controversial. Who really won? Was it Gore or Bush? Because frankly, none of us feel like that was actually concluded. We still think that some people think Gore really won, and they didn't bother to count all the ballots that they should have. Okay? He may have won by a small fucking margin, but he still might have won. Okay? And if there wasn't such a pushback to the Democrats, them trying to get these ballots counted, it only makes it look like the Republicans were sweating bullets that they just might lose. Okay? And this was happening in a state that was governed by Bush's brother, Jeb. Okay? So it all looked extremely suspicious that there was tampering going on in that state. Okay? It was one of the worst fucking election periods I think I've ever seen in this country. Okay? And like I said, to this day, people will still debate this thing. Just like the OJ case, people will still think he's innocent. Okay? People will still think Bush won, but there's a lot of people out there who don't think that was the case. Okay, the Supreme Court put him in there, not the voters. Okay, the Supreme Court stopped all recounting and stuff and said, you take the numbers you got and go with that. And that's essentially how Bush won that first term. Okay, that's how he won. But you see, they're still doing the same game. 26 years later, they're still at it. Okay, different state, but they're still fucking with the election. It's like, you never hear about Democrats so much, tampering with ballots, do you? I challenge people to find something somewhere. You might find maybe a county here, or maybe a couple of voters here who are voting in more than one place, but never to the scale that you see Republicans on a statewide fucking election, taking ballots and deciding what gets counted and what doesn't. Never like that. Okay? I mean, you don't, I can't think of a time when that happened. I mean, sure, people will argue about the Nixon-Kennedy race, and they say, oh, well, Kennedy cheated because he won by such a narrow victory, I guess, okay? Was that a sign of cheating? I don't know. It could have been, but they never proved it. Okay, if it was so dirty, why didn't they ever prove it? They never did. So we have to go with the assumption that he won fair and square, and it was just a close election. They do happen sometimes, maybe not as close as that, but they do happen. And this election here that we had was talking about Gore and Bush. It would have been another close election. Is that a sign that there was tampering going on? Maybe, but it probably wasn't on the left. It was on the right, because this was happening in a red state with the governor, the brother of the person running for president, who was the governor. Okay, so it just looks suspicious. And I think looking back on it, I don't think the Supreme Court should have had any right to interject their 2 cents into this thing, because it's not within their purview to decide an election. That was the first time they ever did that in American history, and they said, don't use this as a basis for another election down the road. So even they knew they weren't really supposed to be deciding what to do with this, but they did. Okay, and the country allowed that decision from them to hold water, which was ridiculous. But our election system is so easily fucked with, and the problem is that we don't stand up for it. We don't have bodyguards for our fucking election system. When you step on its toes, there should be some repercussion for that. An election should be followed by the fucking rules, and those rules should not be allowed to change in order to favor one side or the other. It has to be fair. Because if we can't depend on that system, which is our voice, being sounded off through the votes to the government, if we can't trust that system, then our voices are mute. We're not being heard. We're not being listened to. They don't care about our votes. They don't care what we want, right? So where's this idea about the government by the people and for the people? Is it just words on paper now? Is that what this is? There is no government by the people anymore. It's by who's counting the goddamn votes. That should scare the shit out of most of us. Okay, and then I saw this article here on mediasnews.com, which, kind of made me laugh a little bit, but it's not funny. But I was thinking about how everybody was shitting all over Biden on the way he handled the withdrawal out of Afghanistan. And how, they left, equipment and soldiers to die and all this shit and that from the right wing was so absolutely upset about that. But then I saw this article, and it's entitled, Trump on Why Americans Were Not Evacuated from the Middle East. Well, it all happened very quickly. There is no plan. This is written by Troy Matthews. Trump gave a rambling answer to a question from a reporter as to why tens of thousands of Americans are now stranded in the Middle East and cut off from evacuation with no available flights after his invasion of Iran. It makes what they were pissed off at Biden look like a fucking happy afternoon on a Sunday afternoon. Okay? Quote, well, because it happened all very quickly, unquote, Trump said. Quote, we thought, and I thought maybe more so than most, I could ask Marco, but I thought we were going to have a situation where we were going to be attacked. They were getting ready to attack Israel. They were getting ready to attack others. Oh, so in other words, Israel was more important than the tens of thousands of Americans that were all in the Middle East stranded now. Okay? Quote, you're seeing that right now, and a lot of those missiles that are hitting in, those are stationary, I'm sorry. Those are stationary, unquote, Trump continued. Quote, those are aimed there for a long period of time at these other countries. So I think I was right about that. We attacked first, and if we didn't, it could have been, look, we're really decimating them. They're being decimated. He's just rambling. Nothing in what he said. That these sentences are disjointed and they're not even connected. There is clearly no plan to rescue and evacuate the Americans from the Middle East stranded because of Trump's war of choice. Between 500,000 and 1 million Americans are estimated to live in the Middle East. The State Department said on Monday that Americans should, quote, depart now via commercial means, unquote. Yeah. Anyone that knows any planes with a plane load of Americans leaving, they will become shot down, by people on the ground, okay? That's what's going to happen. The U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem advised Americans in Israel that the Israel Ministry of Tourism was sending shuttle buses to the Taba border crossing with Egypt, but warned the State Department could not vouch for the safety of anyone taking the bus, nor could they recommend leaving the country that way. Quote, the U.S. Embassy is not in a position at this time to evacuate or directly assist Americans in departed Israel, unquote, the notice reads. Okay, so everybody's like saying, oh, well, it couldn't be helped. Okay, well, everything happened so fast. Okay, and the people, they're just going to have to find their own way out. Now, if this was Joe Biden president and this happened, what do you think the Republicans would be doing today? Okay, this is ridiculous. We're not talking about foreigners left behind. We're talking about fellow Americans. The very people that Trump says he wants to, have in this country, real citizens, now he's throwing them under the bus. Tens of thousands of people are stuck in the Middle East while this shit goes on, bombs flying through the fucking air, and they're saying, well, while the bombs are flying through the air, you need to get commercial, get a plane and get the hell out of there. Really? You don't think that the people, the war is not going to see these planes and not know who's in them, and they're going to, hey, that's like, you'd be stupid to take a plane to get out of there anywhere, okay? Nowhere is safe in the air when you got bombs flying around, okay, or fighters or whatever the hell, okay? It's not safe. These people are stuck there for the duration. And do you think that, these people aren't going to be harassed if they come back to the States and, they're going to go search them and make sure that these people aren't terrorists and stuff? It's a complete fucking mess. Like everything Trump does, it's a fucking mess. Okay, this guy cannot open a can of peanut butter, without cutting his hand or breaking the damn jar or whatever. Okay, he can't do anything right. That right there tells you that Kamala Harris was right about him. He is incompetent. He can't be trusted to do the job of president. Okay? He's easily manipulated. He lets his emotions get the better of him. Okay? And and a lot of times he's not really involved 100% with what goes on. He's got other people around him telling him what he should do, and he just picks what idea suits him, and he does that, okay, without really thinking it. Okay? So he's not really cognizant or care. I mean, if you have to care first to do the job. And he never cared enough about that job, even the first term he was in. It was all about covering his ass. Occupying the highest seat in the land just to protect himself from litigation, from the crimes and stuff like that. Abusing the power. I mean, that's why he, put these people in Supreme Court and stuff like that, because he knew that with those people there on his side, he could get away with things, okay? And that, too, has become very obvious now to the American people. So I'm not telling you something that you don't already know and don't already agree with, okay? I'm just bringing that up as, to describe the way Trump has done stuff, in the White House. He's not in it for us. He never was, okay? That's pretty clear now. So this is insane, because some of these people stuck over there probably going to get killed in the crossfire. Okay, and if they're found out that this is an American, they are now going to be looked for and captured and hostages and blackmail, and you know what I'm saying, how this is going to get really, really nasty. These people, I don't, You know, I said way back here in the earliest of my videos that Americans should never really travel abroad in the world. They really shouldn't, because we pissed off a lot of fucking countries, at least within the last 50 years. I mean, we've pissed off a lot of countries, and a lot of countries will hold that fucking grudge forever. There's certain places in the world where it is not good to be an American. If they find out you are, you're either going to get, you know, kidnapped, disappeared, killed, whatever, okay? And it's happened already many different times, okay? A lot of even wealthy people, you know, their son or their daughter goes somewhere, and all of a sudden they don't hear from them, okay? And they have to fight with the government to get them to negotiate their release. It's not safe out there, and it surprises me that so many Americans were in the Middle East while Trump was in the White House, and they knew there was tensions going on between the United States and Iran, because we were busy with Israel, and Israel was at war with that. Why would anybody want to go there now? I mean, or back then. I mean, I wouldn't have gone there. I don't care what the hell's over there, the pyramids or Jerusalem and all. No. That is not no American should be setting foot on that soil there ever, unless you got a damn good life insurance policy, because depending on who the president is, they might negotiate your release, or they might just say fuck them. These people, you got the wrong president. You think this guy's gonna save your ass? You get captured? I'm sure some probably have already been captured, okay? It just news hasn't come out yet, or maybe it will as soon as I'm done recording this thing, okay? But the possibility is there that these people are in danger now that they can't get home. And if they try, they could, you know, they could be shot down. I don't know. It's just this. You see what one president, a bad leader, can do to an entire fucking country and our standing in the world. Okay, a lot of people out there say, "Oh, President doesn't have that much power because we got separation of powers." Yeah, in theory, on paper, but you see how a person like Trump can take that and abuse that power to the nth degree. Today you would never convince anybody that we have a separation of powers, could you? Oh, we've got a Senate, we've got a Congress, we've got a Supreme Court. We have all these departments to, you know, we don't have it all consolidated into one area. Like fucking hell we don't. Our president is proving to us that the United States doesn't have enough separation of powers anymore. We've been giving too much of it to the White House. And look now, the right asshole's in there pulling the fucking levers. Okay? This is the guy that's got the nuclear football, for Christ's sake, okay? How do you know? How do you know that there's a such thing as a separation of powers? Or is it just for our entertainment, to watch the Senate and the Congress bitch and complain and all that, to make us think we have a voice in our government, okay? Because I really don't think that there is that separation anymore, or any respect for that separation and why it was there in the first place. You know, it was... Checks and balances was the important thing at the time that the country was created. Checks and balances. We needed to have accountability for people that go astray. And that's all been fucked over big time in the last 250 years. Really. It really has. What we had in the original version of our country was way more separation of powers than it is today. Okay? So when you're in high school and they're teaching you about that, just remember they're leaving a whole lot out. When you're learning government and civics or whatever, okay? They need to add some history, you know, which you're supposed to be getting that in history class, but you need to incorporate some history into that to tell people the realities of what's become of that. Because otherwise people are going to go out there believing a lie. So anyway, let's go to commercial break.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Roxy Sugar, and this is me. I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you. Original.
DoorDash girl, the sneaky spy who brings the fries.
She delivers, she discovers, snap and share it all.
Press the crash out button and... I'm the victim! DoorDash girl, the villain next door.
As Attorney General, you need to answer our questions.
Pam Bondi, you are under oath. Answer the question.
Answer the question.
When? Now?
It's time to play the U.S. Congress's favorite new game show, Just Answer the Question, Pam. The rules are simple. We ask Pam Bondi a question, and she just has to answer it. Easy for everyone, difficult for Pam. Pam, answer this question.
Donald Trump attended parties with Jeffrey Epstein. Were there any underage girls at those parties?
Can I answer the question?
Go ahead.
I'd like to answer the question.
Please do.
Jeez, when can I answer the question?
Right now. All right, moving on to round 2, which is the same as round 1 because Pam still hasn't answered the question. Pam, just answer the question.
Donald Trump is the best president to ever live.
Not the question.
But the Dow! The Dow!
We're not talking about the Dow.
This is a circus, and you are all clowns.
Okay.
The Dow!
Not even close. All right, still no answer as we move into round 3, the lightning round, which is the same as the other rounds except faster because I need this to be over. Pam, answer the damn question.
Trump derangement syndrome.
Nope.
Merrick Garland.
It's a yes or no question, Pam.
Piper, no!
That's all the time we have today because I'm reclaiming it. And Pam, because you didn't answer a single question, you'll be receiving a well-deserved takedown from Texas Democrat Jasmine Crockett.
You're a horrible lawyer, girl. You really put the law in flaw. You are a liar and a fraud, and let me spell it out for you. Pam, get asked question. Pam, think of answer that won't piss me off. Pam, then open mouth, and hopefully something other than excrement comes out of it. Answer this. Dumbass say what?
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 Dumbass say?
What?
Exactly.
Huh?
On today's episode of As the World Burns, it is being reported that Donald Trump has fired Secretary of Face Transplants, Kristi Noem. I have to show this picture one last time before she's no longer relevant. But I gotta say, this move really leaves me wondering, what was the straw that broke the camel's back? Because she wasn't fired for her excessive brutality on immigrants. I don't think she was fired because she made excuses and justifications for American citizens being executed on the street, right? What I really think it was, for Donald at least, was the fact that she spent $220 million on commercials for ICE. And that's really insane, especially if you've seen one of those commercials. You would think with that kind of budget, there would have been more production than a fucking J.G. Wentworth ad. That guy spends like $50 on his commercials and even manages to have a dope jingle. 877 cash now. Gotta laugh or else I'll cry. We didn't have to wait long to see who her replacement is. Donald Trump is picking the only man in the world who manages to get rage baited by Senator Bernie Sanders on a daily basis. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen. Which is really surprising considering the fact just the other day he was being interviewed by Fox News and committed a mortal sin. Referring to Pete Epic Fury Hegseth several times as President Hegseth.
And it's ugly. And fortunately, you have President Hegseth, or I say President Hegseth, Secretary Hegseth, that has got a great relationship with President Trump. And President Hegseth's been there. He's done that. You have.
Now, I would have assumed under the Trump administration, that's grounds for an execution. But apparently under the Trump administration, not knowing who the President of the United States is gets you a promotion. Now, let me not be too hard on Mark, I go by all three of my names, Mullen. That kind of flub could just be attributed to the many years he spent getting punched in the head as a professional MMA fighter. That's not a joke. But after Kristi Noem, let's face it, that could be a step up. The time he spent in a bloody octagon is nowhere near as bad as the time she spent in a bloody gravel pit executing her puppy. Progress? Anybody? What a shit show. Anyways, bye.
There's a growing number of people that are afraid that the midterm elections are not going to happen, or at the very least, they're going to be undermined.
President Trump has talked twice in recent days, once at the Kennedy Center and then to Reuters again last night about canceling the election.
The president was simply joking.
I am 95% sure the midterm elections will happen. I want to give you some optimism here. I'm pretty confident they're going to happen. However, I do think it's more split, maybe 50-50. 50% chance that they will be undermined, that either Trump himself, his administration, or supporters of him will go out of their way to make sure these elections are not free and fair. But if you are an American, I am pleading to you, I'm begging you at this point, become a poll worker. Just search up local election office, poll worker, your county should pop up. One thing that also gives me hope is the fact that elections in the United States are decentralized. It's not top down, it's bottom up. So elections happen at the local level, but we need to be proactive. There will be shenanigans, so let me reiterate what we can do to prevent this from happening. First of all, don't vote by mail. Second, become a poll worker or convince one of your friends or family members to become a poll worker. Third, I know this is a bit more controversial to say, but take a picture of your ballot and post it on social media. I think this is actually illegal in some states, but I know it's legal in Kansas. We can take a picture of our ballot and post it. Fourth, get to know your local election boards right now. Put the pressure on them right now. The thing that continues to give me hope the most, our justice system is still pretty strong and elections are decentralized. And so don't be a doomer. Don't lose hope. I think that the process will be fine. Trust the process. I sound cheesy sometimes, sorry.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it.
It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
luck, everybody. Okay, now I'm going to read this article to you, and the title of it's going to make you think it's some kind of tabloid article. But this article comes from the Independent, which is a UK publication. And the title of it is called Commander Claimed Trump Was Anointed by Jesus to Cause Armageddon to Justify Iran Strikes. Okay. All right. A military commander told a group of non-commissioned officers, and that's people in the military who don't have, or not officers, they're the ones that have the stripes. Okay, for those of you who don't know what that means, and you never went in the military, that's just those people who wear stripes for their rank and not pins or something. Okay. It said that that President Trump was anointed, quote, in quotes here, anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to earth, unquote, according to a complaint filed with a religious freedom watchdog. The anonymous complaint was provided to the Military Religious Freedom Foundation by one of the NCOs, the non-commissioned officers, in attendance at the Monday briefing on behalf of 15 troops, 11 of whom were Christians, 1 Muslim, 1 Jewish, and 2 atheists, and was first reported by freelance journalist Jonathan Larson. The NCO said of the commander, quote, he urged us to tell our troops that this was all part of God's divine plan, and he specifically referenced numerous citations out of the book of Revelation referring to Armageddon and the imminent return of Jesus Christ, unquote. He added that the superior, quote, had a big grin on his face when he said all of this, which made his message seem even more crazy, unquote. So he was getting off on saying this shit. The complaint was one of more than 200 received since the joint U.S.-Israel assault on Iran began in the early hours of Saturday morning. Quote, anytime Israel or the U.S. is involved in the Middle East, we get this shit about Christian... I'm sorry, he says stuff, not shit. We get this stuff about Christian nationalists who've taken over our government and certainly our U.S. military, unquote. Mikey Weinstein, president and a U.S. Air Force veteran, told, quote, military members are not really able to stand up for themselves because your military superior is not your shift manager at Starbucks, unquote. Weinstein told military.com that his organization had already had, quote, well in excess of 200, unquote, complaints from, quote, well in excess of 50 installations, unquote, adding, quote, they are continuing to come in everywhere, unquote. Quote, what we've been saying forever, if you look back in history, whenever you've merged any sort of religious fanaticism with the machinery of the state that conducts war, we do not end up with little babbling brooks, creeks, streams, ponds, or lakes. We end up with one thing, oceans and oceans of blood, unquote. Weinstein noted Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's hardline Christianity, which has included holding monthly prayer services at the Pentagon and reportedly attending a church in Washington, D.C. associated with Christian nationalist pastor Doug Wilson. Quote, why is anybody surprised? Hegseth makes it clear. Here's the template that we want, unquote, he said, and then added, quote, that fully encourages one of those Christian nationalist commanders and members of the chain of command, whether they believe it or not, they know it's a way to get ahead, to try to rationalize the mission, unquote. Last summer, the Pentagon was forced to clarify that Hegseth does believe women have the right to vote after the secretary posted a video on social media in which another pastor, Jared Longshoreman, expressed his support for scrapping the 19th Amendment. Trump himself has often cut an unconvincing figure on matters of faith. He famously struggled to name a favorite passage from Scripture in an August 2019 interview with Bloomberg, and has sold, quote, God bless the USA, unquote, branded copies of the Bible, which takes its name from a patriotic country song by Lee Greenwood and includes the Constitution of the United States, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Pledge of Allegiance thrown in for good measure. Trump's edition of the good book is printed in China, retails for $60 or $1,000 for a signed copy, and is available in pink and gold and camouflage editions. Yeah. So all this talk about God this and Trump as, you know, doing Armageddon, I mean, it's all part of propaganda and motivation. You know, Jesus saves people, right? And yet the people that are out there killing other people, they're saying that Trump is Jesus returned. Well, Jesus returned, if that's Trump, ain't saving anybody. Okay, he ain't saving anybody. He's not helping anybody either. Okay. He's got his eggs in a basket, but it ain't the basket of the United States. He's got his eggs in a basket that's meant to come back to him in huge loads of other eggs, okay? This is him for himself, okay? And so, he's trying to use every fucking, the religious right, which has always been very, very fucking lopsided and puzzling and even creepy when it comes to war, how they come out and justify it. Okay, nowhere in the Bible have you ever saw anything in there that's pro-war, like, oh, this was a good war, this had to happen. Nowhere. Okay, every time there was a conflict, it was always regarded as a bad thing, a bad time, a bad period. Okay, never. Okay, but yet somehow people who call themselves Christian have turned that message on its ear. Okay, now it's okay to have war because God's behind it, Jesus is behind it. Okay, this is Armageddon. Why is everybody so interested in creating Armageddon? If that's the case, why haven't we launched nukes already? Is it because those people that want Armageddon don't want their little properties burnt to the ground, or they don't want their assets melted? Okay, they just want it to be a selective. You can't do it that way. Armageddon or nothing. Okay, that's the way it is. And when it happens, it's not going to happen in a controlled sense. It's not going to be something that these people can create and control. Armageddon happens and everybody's ass is on the line. Rich, poor, doesn't matter. Okay, that's Armageddon. They're thinking that, this little fight over there, they're hoping will stay contained over there, okay, that's Armageddon. No, they haven't seen Armageddon yet, okay? A lot of these assholes talking like that probably never even witnessed World War II. A lot of people then would have thought that was Armageddon, okay? Because everybody's ass was on the line, not just a certain few, okay? But even then, to this day, we still have people out there hoping and praying for Armageddon to happen. It's like, look, if you guys are so eager to just die, then kill yourself, okay? Don't fucking drag the rest of us down with you. If you want to meet God, then go. Just do it, okay? Just do it. But no, you see, they have this twisted view about what the end of days is going to look like, and they want to be the ones left standing in the end, so they can inherit the earth. Well, people, an Armageddon isn't going to leave much of an earth left to have. Okay, considering the firepower all our countries have now, there would be nothing left to want. All your little empires would be gone. Okay, all the little people that you abuse and sucker into working slave hours for you, they'd be gone too. You'd have nothing of value at that point. Money won't be worth a shit. Okay? It won't be worth anything. That's Armageddon. That's what it looks like. The earth would become the surface of the fucking moon. All right? So, unless that's what you really want, then shut the fuck up, because your version of Armageddon is this romantic peachy little scenario where only certain people have to die, and not you, not the wealthy. Okay? You would think adults would be smarter and think smarter, but I can see now, I'm 54 years old, that adults are no much smarter than the damn kids that are, outside playing first, second grade. We ain't no better than they are. What right do we have to raise kids? That's my question. When we can't even manage our own lives in a logical fashion, we're the ones that's going to have to teach morality to these kids? Us? Really? We can't even live in our own morality. Jesus. What right do we have to raise kids? Maybe that explains why so many things never get changed in the world, is because the wrong people are behind every kid that grows up. They're not getting the right lessons. We try. Some of us try. Very few of us can do it and do a good job. But god damn, I mean, you get a lot of people out there that have kids that shouldn't have them, and the kids come out to be horrible or, in some way twisted, like Trump. And look what happens. If it wasn't Trump, it probably would have been somebody else. We got too many of these Trumpers, these Trump-like people roaming around the world here. Okay? It's like a summertime with mosquitoes all around you. Jesus Christ. That's what it's like. Because none of us seem to take the responsibility of raising kids with any moral core. And it doesn't require religion to give that core to them. In fact, I think a lot of people, if you'll pardon what I'm saying, that they get a lot of the bad upbringing from religious-based people and all that. I mean, I think religion has done more damage than good to try to educate the masses out there to do or to follow in God's footsteps. Because why would we have people in their 80s sitting in seats of power using the Bible to justify their heinous acts? I mean, Trump, he's out there peddling the Bible, his version of the Bible, and at the same time he's diddling with little girls. I've always said that, some of the worst people you'll ever run into are those that are pretending on the surface that they're religious. Okay? BTK. Does that ring a bell to any of you people? What was he doing when he wasn't killing women? Okay? I'm telling you. I think religion has done the worst. Okay? It may have started off fine, but down through the thousands of years and stuff that religion's been around, I think it has misguided a lot of people, and people have used it, that religion, to justify doing some pretty ugly things by taking a passage out of a Bible and twisting the meaning of it around. To people who aren't that familiar with the Bible, they would believe it, but those who are would recognize what he's doing or what she's doing. Okay? So if you don't know your religion and you don't understand it, you're susceptible to be bought by it. Okay? You don't have to be religious, okay, to understand crap when you hear it. Okay? You don't have to be. You don't have to be the Pope. Even the Pope doesn't know everything. Okay? He's still a man. But like I said, you don't have to be religious if you have any common sense to know what's being fed to you is bullshit. And Trump, he's a bullshit creator if I ever saw one. He shits his pants when he's out in public, okay? He's got so much bullshit he can't even hold it in. Okay? That's the way he is. So, like I said, this is crazy, that you got a guy, a military leader, going around trying to sell this fucking war to his troops, okay, as something that was meant to happen. Okay? Nostradamus had all kinds of things that were supposed to happen too, but you don't see anybody talking about, it was Nostradamus who predicted it. Okay? No. Okay? He wasn't what you'd call religious, okay, or anything like that, but, lots of people down through history have always made predictions about when the time of the world's going to end, okay? And I always wonder, why are you so eager for that? Really? Why can't you just say, okay, it'll end when it ends. Nature will end it. Okay, if we don't end it, it'll end on its own anyway. No world lasts forever. Every world dies, okay? They say half the stars you see at night are already dead. We're still getting the light from those dead stars because, you know, but a lot of those stars you look at night, they ain't there no more, okay? So we know everything ends. At some point, it all ends, okay? So your Armageddon will come in some form or other. Why hasten it? You know, who is that going to benefit? You think it's going to benefit you, but you're going to be in for a real rude awakening here when the shit lands on you. You weren't saved or protected like you thought you'd be. Okay. So yeah, I mean this is crazy, and it's not the first time. I mean, when I was in the Air Force, there were a lot of really religious people that were also airmen. Okay, that were there. They had their churches and stuff like that. Okay. My first roommate in the Air Force was a member of, I can't remember, what was it, Church of the Living God or something like that. You know, I can't remember now, but that's the name they put on themselves for that. Nice people, okay? Nice people. I'm not going to say they were bad. You know, I went to one of their, well, I call it a mass, but it's not what they call it. But I went to one of their masses and stuff, and you know, it's upbeat and happy, and everybody's enjoyed. It felt like a party, okay. But I felt like they were trying to recruit me to come into it. You know, they really were pushing for that, and I recognized it, and I told them, no, I'm Catholic, you know, and I just, you know, I like being here. You know, I like the atmosphere. You people are nice and all that. I don't want to commit, you know, to anything outside. I mean, you know, it's just, that's just what I am. Okay. Even though at the time, you know, Catholicism was, you know, sort of like, I was already questioning that. But I was also questioning the whole idea about a God, okay, and this, you know, how people are trying to interpret God, but nobody seems to ever come close to, you know, what I think a God would be. You know, I don't know. There's a lot of thought there at the time, and I just realized, or I felt like, you know, Catholicism just wasn't for me. Okay, it just wasn't, and especially when all these priests started to get caught for, you know, molesting kids, and that really put the fucking, you know, nail in the coffin, as it were. I didn't want to be part of that. So, you know, I just felt like that was it. But like I said, you know, I've seen that in the military, religious people in the military. So it's not unusual that you would see somebody say something like that. But I think it reveals too much of an individual when they talk like that, and it makes people say, you know, this is not, you know, who is this guy? Anyway, you know, it makes people cringe, especially this day and age. I don't know whether people understand it or not, but religion today has become sort of a, you know, I'm not going to say taboo, but it's sort of like, you know, there's something wrong with you if you're like that devoted to your religion. People look down on that more now than they ever did, no matter what religion it is, because we've been let down a lot by our religions over the years. Okay, a lot of corruption comes into play, and it comes to the surface from people that we thought we could trust. You know, a lot of things like that have happened, and people now question religion more than they ever have. And so when you hear somebody today talk like this guy did here, that Trump was anointed by Jesus, I mean, that in itself is like big red fucking flags, okay? Trump is the last person in the fucking world I would think of as somebody that God would want here doing his work. So that would say God was all for pedophilia, right? So when Trump was out there raising hell, okay, and screwing with little kids and stuff like that, apparently that was Jesus returned, right? Okay? So don't insult people with that shit. Don't insult me with that shit, okay? I know what you're doing. You're trying to bolster Trump's image because you know it's in the fucking toilet ready to get flushed. Okay, this guy's obviously a Trump supporter, and he's trying to do his damnedest to convince other people that what they're doing over in Iran is correct, that it's all supposed to happen. We were saying that when we went into Iraq. Funny thing is nobody's saying that anymore now. We all look back on it, even the people that I run into today, when they see me wearing my veteran's hat and stuff, you know, they'll even say it, you know, I'm sorry that everything ended up the way it did, you know. And it's because, well, at the time, people thought we had to do that because of 9/11. We were so pissed off, you know, and, you know, what can I say? That's just one of those things, you know. That's you. When you live a long time, you'll see all kinds of things like that. You'll experience a lot of other people's opinions, and you start to understand that, you know, people find out too late. They realize too late that they've been played. Okay, we were played then. We're being played now, and it's going to be years later before anybody who supported Trump now will say, yeah, we got fucked. Okay, he screwed us over. He was the worst president we ever had. You'll have to live a long time in order to hear anybody say that out loud. You ain't gonna hear that right now, because everybody, you know, no, it's all political. It's all we did the right thing. It's owning the libs. It's all this bullshit. Okay, that's gonna disappear in time, which it's gonna take time. So, all right, that's it for today, everybody. So I'm gonna let you have your weekend, and subscribe, comment, and share, and, you know, keep your ears open for health issues, and help each other out there. Do what we can for each other. Stay strong out there as we go through all this, and I'll talk to you guys later, so take care. Bye-bye.